In this video, I'm going to go over finding and interpreting relative and cumulative frequencies. I already have a table with some frequency values. So we've already gone through the data set and we've tallied up the number of times each of these data values appear in the data set. And now what we're going to do is take this information and compute the relative and the cumulative frequencies. The relative frequency is just a ratio of each frequency over the total number of data points. And you may already have that value from your initial table, or you may need to get that value by adding up all of the frequencies seen here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tally up all our values. So we add up 3, 5, 3, 6, 2, and 1. And from there, we can see that our frequency, or our total frequency, our total frequency in this case is 20. So now we know we can divide, I'm just going to put total right here. We can divide all of our other values by 20 to get our relative frequencies. So the first row, we're going to take 3 and divide it by 20. And then we can convert that to decimal form. So we could also say it's 0.15. We're going to take 5 and divide it by 20. In decimal form, it will be 0.25. We're going to take 3 over 20. And in decimal form, that's 0.15. Again, we already know. We could do 6 over 20. And even with the calculator, we know we can just double this, right? It's double. So it's 0.30. We'll take 2 over 20. And that's a simpler one too. So that's 1/10, 0.10. And in our final value, we'll take 1 over 20. And that's going to give us 0.05. So now I just found all of my relative frequencies by just taking a ratio of each frequency and the total number of data points. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compute the cumulative relative frequency. And this is just a running tally of the amount of, or the percentage of data that falls at or below your current data value. So in this case, we want to know how much of our data is equal to or less than this 2. So right now, our lowest data value appears to be 2. So this is going to be 0.15. And next, we want to know what percentage of our data is less than or equal to 3. Well, it's all of our values that are equal to 3 and equal to 2. So we're going to take these two values and add them together. So 0.15 plus 0.25 gives me the percentage of data less than or equal to 3. And in this case, it's going to be 0.40. We're going to do the same thing at 4. So we want to know what percentage of our data is less than or equal to 4. So it's going to be the percentage of data for 4, 3, and 2. We can take this value. We already know how much data is less than or equal to 3. So we could just take this value and add our 0.15 to it in order to figure out how much data is less than or equal to 4. So it's 0.040 plus 0.15. And as you can see, all we're doing is we're taking the previous cumulative frequency and we're adding our current relative frequency. So it's just a little pattern that we can use to find all of our cumulative frequencies. So I'm going to keep going. So I know I'm going to take my 0.55 and I'm going to add it to 0.30. And that's going to give me 0.85. My 0.85, I'm going to add it to 0.10. That's going to give me 0.95. Then I'm going to take my final frequency, 0.95, add it to 0.05, and then I get 1. And notice because we're doing a running tally and our highest value is 7, well, 100% of the data must be less than or equal to 7 because that's our highest value. So this cumulative relative frequency is just letting us know how much of our data is less than or equal to whatever data value we're looking at. So we just look at the value in the row, and then we'll see how we can use this column to figure out how much of the data is less than or equal to 6, for example. So now let's take a look at a couple of questions. So we want to see, for example, what fraction, I didn't tell you what this data represents, but what fraction of the data lived at most, let's see, I'll give you a question. What fraction of the data was at most 5? So if I want to say at most 5, so I'm going to say, oh, this is not working anymore. What percentage or what fraction of data is at most 5? So at most, that means it's going to be, this is the same as less than or equal to 5, right? You should be able to translate this into an inequality. It's going to be very important. So I said that each cumulative frequency, relative frequency, lets us know how much of our data is less than or equal to the data value of interest. So if I want to know how much of my data was less than or equal to 5, it's going to be this value right here. So it's going to be 0.85. What if I wanted to know what fraction of data is greater than 5? What if I want the opposite? So I know that right here, 0.85 lets me know how much of my data was less than or equal to 5. If I want to know what was greater, well, it's going to be everything else, right? So my other two rows, 6 and 7, are greater than 5. One way of doing that is I can add up these two relative frequencies, or I know that my total cumulative frequency is going to add up to 1. So what I can do is I can actually take 1 and subtract out the amount that I know that is less than or equal to 5, and all other values, and this will give me my remaining percentage. So 1 minus 0.85, lets me know that 15% of my data must have been greater than 5. And you can check that here. Like if you were to add up these two values, you would see that adds up to 15%, right? So for my relative frequencies for 6 and 7, are the values greater than 5? So either way will work. So you can either use this column, right, 1 minus whatever's here, or you can add up the remaining values. And here it works out nicely because I only have 2. I can quickly add it up. But if I had 20 values below this, I might just want to take this row and do 1 minus my cumulative frequency. I hope this clears it up for everybody. You're going to have many more problems like this. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me.